encuentra con nosotros una de las economistas más distinguidas que tiene nuestro planeta. Deirdre McCloskey es profesora retirada de la Universidad de Illinois en Chicago. Fue maestra también de la Universidad de Chicago. Le tocó, de hecho, adiestrar, enseñar a más Chicago Boys que el propio Milton Friedman, según me decía antes de entrar al aire. Ella ha escrito una serie de libros sobre la economía liberal, uno de los cuales está presentando en español en México, o que está presentando en México, es Las virtudes burguesas, ética para la era del comercio. Deirdre McCloskey, thank you very much for being with us. And no one talks about bourgeois virtues, and people even ask, why virtues?
How could that be?
Yeah, how could that be? Bourgeois, if it's bourgeois, it has to be bad. At least that's what they teach us at our universities in Latin America. You're totally opposed to that.
Worldwide. That's what they teach worldwide. That making money, which you only do if people benefit from what you do, because they're willing to pay. Making money is evil. You should do volunteer work, and I don't know. And so there's this long-standing view on the left, and indeed some on the right, the more conservative on the right, view anything but land ownership or university professors and journalists as dirty.
I mean, anyone who worked was dirty, but...
working.
Now, has the bourgeoisie really transformed the world?
Yes.
I mean, you've actually said it in your books.
Yes, it's transformed the world. Except it's not a fixed class. People move into the bourgeoisie. We were once all peasants or slaves. Your ancestors were, mine were, everyone was. And yet here we are. So, but it's this group of people who are allowed to have a go. And they can come from the working class or the middle class or indeed the aristocracy.
Thomas Piketty, the French economist, has produced a book that generated controversy all over the world, and
Yes.
you've been a critic of that book. But basically what Thomas Piketty says is that we live in a society that is increasingly unequal, and that's bad, that we have to do something about it.
Well, it depends on where the inequality comes from. If it comes from inheritance or stealing, then I'm against it.
Okay.
I want high inheritance taxes. I do. But if it comes from creative work that helps everybody, as Steve Jobs or whoever does, it's temporary. It gets eroded by entry, by competition, and it's an incentive and a sort of a source of funds for further innovation, as Steve Jobs did. So I think it's a big mistake to think that capitalism, as we unfortunately call it, I don't think it causes more inequality. I think it causes equality.
Is that so? Because, I mean, your point of view is totally different from what other people think.
I know, and they're wrong and I'm right, which is often the case.
How do you know you're right? Do you have the the information?
Well, yes, because in the 1700s and before, we had much more unequal societies, and they were frozen. There was the aristocrats or the owner of the hacienda. They were the rich, and your ancestors and mine were the poor.
Well, in fact, in the early 1800s, more than 90% of the population of the world was poor.
Of course, you can. On average, in 1800, in modern prices, American dollars, the average person earned $3 a day. Now there are still countries that earn $2 or $3 a day. I mean, it's terrible, but many countries are now moving into $80 a day, $100 a day, and that's a transformation, and it's equalizing. What Piketty focuses on is financial wealth, but what we should be focusing on is, so to speak, essential consumption. Healthcare, education, have a roof over your head, have clothing, have some prospects for your children.
So is poverty the real issue?
Poverty. Equality is not an ethically relevant concept. You're probably smarter than I am. I'm almost sure.
Probably not, I'm sure.
No, I think you probably are. How should we achieve equality? Drive nails into your head until you're as stupid as I am? No, that's silly. We should let the society use your intelligence for the benefit of us all. Now, you, in the first instance, you'll get the money.
China is an example of a society that was very poor but very equal. Now it's much richer but much more unequal. And some people claim that, in fact, that's the wrong way to go, that it doesn't make any sense to go that way, that it doesn't matter that people are less poor because they're more unequal.
Yeah, but ask the poor people if they agree with it. Ask the people in China who did the largest human migration in world history. 200 million people moved from the center and the west of China to the East Coast to work in factories. Ask them how they feel. Don't say, oh, those are terrible jobs. I, as a journalist or professor, I don't like them. Come on. They did it voluntarily. They're not, they haven't reached nirvana, but it's better than being back in the village of two dragons. They'll say it. So I think we should honor the poor by their votes with their feet. And in fact, now Eastern China is a middle-income country. It has an income per head something like that in Mexico.
And it was much poorer than Mexico just 20, 30 years.
It was vastly poorer than Mexico. I mean, under Mao, and indeed the same is true of India, for which actually I'm more optimistic, because India is already a free country. It's a democracy. Whereas the Communist Party somehow has to get off the back of the tiger without getting eaten. They've got to move to liberalism.
Your president, Donald Trump, says that...
I apologize.
Okay. That free trade has impoverished and destroyed production in the U.S. What do you think?
Silly. The free trade, the NAFTA, for example, has been good for all three countries, very good. And if you don't move out of some steel mill town in Pennsylvania, if you insist on staying there, then you're going to be poor because there are no jobs. But if you move to Texas, you can get a job. And in fact, income per head has gone up as a result of trade, just as if you and I trade, I want to buy your tie, which I think is very nice. It's very handsome. I'll give that as a gift to a friend. And I offer you, I don't know, $100.
Oh, no, you can have it.
Take it off right away.
Take it.
There you go. And so I get the tie, you get the $100. We're both better off. Trade is not between countries. Trade is between individual people. And that's how we ought to view it.
You have defended freedom economically.
I have.
But you've also defended freedom individually. You believe people should have the freedom to make personal choices. You've made personal choices.
Mine, for example.
You were a man, you're a woman now.
Until 1995, I was Donald. A lot of people my age were called Donald, Donald Trump.
Okay.
Then Donald Duck ruined it.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that was the reason.
That's the reason. It's gone
Donald.
down. But yeah, that's right. And in a free society, one's allowed to do things that don't, look, I can do anything up to your nose, so to speak.
Yeah, as long as you don't hurt me.
As long as I don't physically hurt you, I can compete with you.
Okay.
If I have a TV show and I compete with you,
that's fair.
You have no complaints.
Yeah, but you can't censor my
I can't censor it. I can't send my thugs to beat you up. I can't go to the government and get a subsidy for my TV show and against yours. I can't do those things, and that's a liberal society.
Many people who call themselves liberals, in the classical sense of the word, I know that in the States the word liberal means
It means
the
slow
opposite.
socialism.
Yeah, socialist. But a lot of liberal people who defend freedom in the economy are opposed to personal moral choices.
I know
like
they
yours.
are, and those people are conservatives. They're not liberals. If you're an Adam Smith liberal,
Yes.
or a John Stuart Mill liberal, or a Mary Wollstonecraft liberal, then you believe freedom is freedom,
Okay.
whether it's economic freedom or personal freedom. So,
John Stuart Mill said that he could do whatever he wanted to do with his body, including, imbibe or
That's right.
just use whatever
right.
substance he wanted.
that's right. This war on drugs, which has had such a terrible effect in Mexico and in my country, in both our countries, because of the demand for drugs in the United States, is an example of this sort of conservative busybody. I don't want you to have marijuana.
I'll make the decisions for you because you're not qualified to make a decision.
And that's true of the right and the left. The right says people are children and are bad children. The left says they're children and they're stupid children. And they both want to use the power of the state to nudge, they say on the left, or rule. And I'm a liberal. I'm up here. I don't want the power of the state to be used against you.
Why is it so difficult today to convince people that making decisions for themselves is so important?
Well, because they've grown accustomed to a very high level of government spending and regulation. Look, in the United States in 1910 or 1913, doesn't much matter, the share of all levels of government, local, state, and federal, in national income was 7.5%. Now it's 35%.
Deirdre McCloskey, thank you very much for this
Thank you
conversation.
very much. I've enjoyed it.
Gracias. Y a usted, amigo, que hace posible este programa, se lo agradezco también. Esto es todo por hoy, pero no se lo olvide. Nos vemos la próxima.